Colleen Yates, and welcome to RDA Perth, our YouTube channel. And today we're going to be talking with Mary Harris. She's the president of the SJ, or Serpentine Jarradale Food and Farm Alliance. So welcome, Mary. How are you?
Thank you, Colleen. I'm terrific.
So tell us a little bit about the SJ Food and Farm Alliance.
The Alliance was created about 4 years ago is in a response to the perceived pressures that were being exhibited by the development of peri-urban areas. And we created a community-based non-profit organisation that would hopefully garner support of a very wide proportion of the population, all farmers as well as consumers. And we've just proceeded down that path. We lobby local governments where we can, we go higher, we work with lots of local organisations, Landcare, Peel Harvey Catchment Council, all sorts of non-profit organisations that are working in the interest of the community. So that's what we're on about. And generally our aim is to really promote our local producers. Serpentine Jarradale has an unexpectedly high level of rural output for a peri-urban area, but very few people know about it. And I think it's really important for the future food security of Perth.
Fantastic. So it sounds like you're bringing consumers together with the farmers?
Yes, we are working really hard at providing opportunities for consumers to learn about local products and why eating a local product coming from a healthy soil is really important to their personal health. So we do that, and hopefully we're engendering a sense of ownership amongst those people about wanting to protect their food sources, and that will in turn then support the local food producers and landholders in growing their market and growing their produce so that they can supply those consumers who want the good stuff.
So is Serpentine Jarradale, where is that actually located? Is that, yeah, tell us where that is.
Okay, we're about 45 kilometres south-east-ish of the Perth CBD. So we're right on the fringe. We form the fringe local government of the metropolitan planning region.
Fantastic. And so what activities do you undertake in order to bring the consumers closer to the farmers? Do you run workshops?
Yeah.
What do you do?
We do a whole gamut of workshops. We run everything from little simple things like how to build and run a worm farm, composting, all the way through all sorts of food preservation and preparation. Sourdough bread making classes were really popular. Fermenting classes are really popular. People love to know how to do that because they know those things are good for their health. And then we run big events like our Food and Farm Fest, which we have happening in May this year. And we've got now a very well-known logo and all that's very well recognised now, because this is the third year that we've done our Food and Farm Fest, and it's a big fun event to make it possible for the urban population to come and visit farmers and producers and on a farm, not on a oval, that's, hygienically presented by the local government. People need to realise what it's like to mix it up with a cow here or a horse there or a goat, or get their hands a bit dirty.
Good. So you read a lot in the papers these days about the disconnect of people from their food. So what has been the response of the workshops in terms of reacquainting people with how to do processing and cook their own foods and make their own bread? What's been the response?
People love it. I think there's a nostalgia from a certain age group of people who go, my grandma used to do this and we had to do this when we were kids in the kitchen, and I wish my grandchildren would be able to do this too. So there's that perspective. And then you have young people bringing their very young children coming along to get their hands dirty in the worm farm or just real and go to orchards and learn how to pick fruit and stuff like that. So there's a really vast range of people who are interested, and it never fails to surprise me about who's showing up to do these things. So it's really been terrific.
So I understand that you guys have also produced a book highlighting the farmers in the area. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it was a bit of a brainchild after I saw a book produced by Scenic Rim Council in Queensland. But it was created by a photojournalist, a professional journalist, and a chef who owned businesses. I thought, well, we're not going to go there. So we just thought about how can we promote our local producers. And so what we did was we spent about 6 months, three of us, Ellen Walker as the recorder and organiser, and Colleen Rankin, who was a retired photojournalist, and myself, and I just went along as the pretty face really, and to introduce people, and some of the old farmers know my family from way back, so it was sort of nice to make those reconnections for me again. And we visited about 40 farms and different properties, restaurants, and some really interesting other facilities that you wouldn't normally think about visiting, like a Whitby Falls farm, which has been taken over by Murdoch University as an extension of their veterinary school, and we were able to go there. And we also got to Carnet Prison Farm, which has enormous food production facilities, so we got to see all of that as well. So it was a real mixture from people on half an acre with 131 edible species of fruit and veg on their property, all the way through to really big beef farmers, lots of apple orchardists, and we put it all in a book. Little short stories, and then we had a big launch at the end of the year, and it was the most gratifying thing that we could have done, because I think all of a sudden the producers suddenly thought, well, somebody cares about us, and they're all starting to talk to one another. So I feel like that single book has just really united a lot of our producers, and they see a common cause. It's really good.
Good. Maybe if you want to hold up the book that you've got.
And that's our book there. And it's still available. It's a little expensive because we had to self-publish, as these things are, but being a non-profit, we can't sell it either. Can't make it cheap. We've got to cover our costs.
Yeah. So has it brought a lot of attention to the region and to the farmers?
I think it has, because we've been able to put that book in the hands of people in the Department of Agriculture. We even gave one to the Governor of WA a few weeks ago. The Peel Development Commission has copies, Peel Harvey Catchment Council, all the people who have a vested interest in what we're doing are getting on board. They see the value of the book. And we're actually already being asked if we can do something like that for the Peel region. They want, other producers in the Peel region now would love to see that happen.
Yeah, it brings the question to, the importance of the peri-urban region. I know that from our perspective, RDA Perth has undertaken a peri-urban development strategy, which we launched in 2015, and I know that's led to a much broader conversation. And as I understand it, Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development are now starting to look at a peri-urban strategy. So they're bringing people together and to look at that space between the urban front and the rural. So yes, we'll take a little break and we'll be back shortly. And for all of you out there, please hit subscribe, and we'll talk to you in a minute. Welcome back. I'm Colleen Yates. I'm the CEO of Regional Development Australia Perth, and welcome to our YouTube channel. And we're here talking to Mary Harris. She's the president of the Serpentine Jarradale Food and Farm Alliance. So welcome back.
Thank you.
And Mary, in terms of the broader perspective on peri-urban development, I know that the Shire of Serpentine Jarradale is one of those areas that's under pressure to subdivide and break things down into smaller blocks. So talk me through a little bit in terms of the impact on farmers and what's happening in that space, because I know it's not just the Shire of Serpentine Jarradale. It covers the whole Perth metropolitan area and other local governments such as Wanneroo, Kalamunda, the Swan, or City of Swan. So can you talk us through that a little bit? What's the impact?
Yeah. Look, Serpentine Jarradale has probably, I think, the largest number of small, special residential rural properties of any peri-urban local government around Perth, which is good and bad in a sense. They're so small that a lot of people consider them not capable of being highly productive in terms of any economic return. And so that creates a bit of a dilemma. On the other hand, what it has done, it has created a bit of a buffer between the highly densely urban areas, and Serpentine Jarradale has been forced by West Australian planning documents and policies to open urban areas because of our position close to the CBD. And we are under a lot of pressure to make those really dense urban cities. So Serpentine Jarradale in the last 10 years has had this terrible struggle of having to plan for and develop 2 cities the size of Albany within a few kilometres on the edge of our shire. But those smaller blocks are creating a nice buffer, if you like, between that dense urban area and then the broader acre farms that we have. More than half of our shire is still zoned rural for bigger properties. So it's an ideal sort of way that we have sort of that little segue between the urban centres and the rural. But what it does is it puts a lot of pressure on the rating of agricultural areas that are adjacent to high urban areas. So farmers sometimes feel the pinch, and because we're actually in the metropolitan planning scheme, they're subject to more metropolitan tax rates, land tax and the likes. So for a lot of farmers who are still in our shire, who are legitimately and really farming, are paying higher taxes than somebody 100 kilometres away doing the same job. So there's that sort of pressure. On the other hand, Serpentine Jarradale have been the beneficiaries of some extraordinarily far-sighted people back in the 90s who created a rural strategy plan for our shire. And it was so ahead of its time that even the West Australian Planning Commission didn't know really what to do with it. But our councillors for 20 years basically fought for the principles of this document and have, for the most part, won. And so the rural character and productive capacity of our land still remains really quite high. So we've just got that interesting dilemma of having to manage really encourage high density urban development, but on the other hand, still can you keep producing food for us people in Perth who don't know where it comes from?
Yeah, it's and I understand that the Shire is the fastest growing local government area in Australia.
That's
How
right.
do you guys manage that?
With great difficulty. It has been a dilemma. I was on council for 6.5 years during the absolute worst of the housing boom period in the 2006, 7, 8 era. And it was a huge problem because we had such a tiny rate base to raise funds to manage this, and yet we were having to plan these two extensive urban areas with practically, 2 pieces of paper and a couple of peanuts for money. So it was a lot of heartache for a lot of people. But I think as a local government area, they've done quite well in consulting with the community. So the community really has had a fairly big input into how things should roll out.
And I understand that one of those urban areas is the town of Byford.
Yes.
And it's because of housing affordability, you have a lot of young families moving into the area.
Yeah.
So, and it sounds like from your workshops that you've got young people moving into that space as well.
We do. Demographically, I was just looking at this recently, demographically, our urban areas in Byford, our average age is 5-6 years lower than the average age for the state.
Wow.
So, and I think a quarter of the population in our shire is under the age of 18. So every school that is built as part of the new urban development is full on day one that it opens. So every school is under pressure all the time, just trying to cope with this younger population that's coming through.
Yeah, I was quite surprised with the new Byford school. That I was there during a time when students were leaving or to go home, and I was amazed that for such a brand new school that just opened, a year or two ago, there were so many students.
That's right.
It's unbelievable.
That school is actually amazing. Apparently it's the most technologically advanced school, with all the wingdings and everything in it, of any school. Maybe even, I think somebody said in Australia, but certainly in the state. And it's designed for a capacity for 2,500 students.
Wow.
So, and it's right there in the middle of the town. So,
is the SJ Food and Farm Alliance looking to work more closely with the school and the students?
We will probably in the future, as we expand our activities, that would be an ideal opportunity. One of the things that we're hoping to do in the future is create food hubs. In other words, where producers can bring their product to a central place, and that central place then becomes an aggregation point for local produce. We can do value-adding processes, hospitality processes, maybe having, and then an outreach into, so the community knows that that's where you go and buy absolutely local product. And part of that would be an educational facility to train people up in all of those aspects of dealing with food, coming in, how you value add, how you distribute it, how you sell it, that sort of thing. So, we think big.
Well, it sounds like the Alliance is doing an absolutely fantastic job, and so thank you, Mary, for coming in to talk to us, and thank you to everyone out there for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you later.
This was a blow your mind sort of farm that we went to, and we knew it was going to be exciting, but I didn't realise how exciting it was going to be. And so we rock up, and here's this place that's got at least 2 acres of amazing variety of fruit trees and everything, entirely protected by netting, so the birds can't get in there. And then when you get in, so you go through a gate and you close it behind you, so this orchard is really secure. And then you get in there, and underneath, on one half of the orchard, are hundreds of guinea pigs. And the guinea pigs are cleaning the ground. So all the dropped fruit and everything comes down. The guinea pigs eat it. They don't have a fruit fly problem. They don't have any waste problem. Then you go into the other half of the orchard, and in that half, the ducks are in charge of that process. So if they get too many guinea pigs, guess what? They scoop them up and they can sell them to a pet food store. On the duck side, the ducks produce eggs. You can get a lot more money for a duck egg than you can for a chook egg. And then they've got chooks on the side, so the chooks can have a little bit of a run out there if they like. So that's sort of a place. And between the rows of the trees, they've got all these raised beds that they grow all the veggies in, which they take to market. And this is just a family of people. And since then, they've actually opened a storefront in North Dandalup, and they sell all their goods and stuff through the storefront. And
have, Colleen and Mary, have you found that young people that engage in these sorts of activities and learn this are encouraged more to buy food from where they know the source is? But are you finding they are getting excited and want to become involved in actually becoming producers? Do we see a young influx into this area now? How do you find it, Colleen?
I think there is a surge of interest in farming, and I think it's stemming a lot from, we have on TV MasterChef, My Kitchen Rules, and a number of shows around food, gourmet, this and that. And there's a lot of focus in that space. And I think young people who are interested in that are starting to learn, oh, well, where does it come from? You know, so I think there's an interest in looking back and seeing, you know, where learning about farming and production and preserving.
Right, and there's sociological evidence from around the world that the millennials actually operate from a very high ethical position, and they're becoming much more acutely aware of the ethics behind food and what it's doing for the ecology and nature and climate change and fairness, social fairness.
Yeah, and I think there's an interesting move now with using social media. So, for instance, there's Frio Food, and a lot of people on that particular site, they produce food in their backyards or you know, make jams and jellies and actually share them through social media. So it's really fantastic.
I'm going to ask you, because you two ladies are really, really passionate about this, but I know there's a lot of hard work goes behind the scenes, and especially with RDA Perth, you do a lot of work in this peri-urban, and yourself, Mary, it's not a walk in the park and going on the farm, is that you do a lot of community work and committees and so forth. What's the stage of passion?
For us, for RDA Perth, we feel that through the preservation of the peri-urban space, we actually develop economic activity. So, you know, by encouraging people to stay on farm, work with the local producers, we create a bit of a interest and hub in that space to where, there's people want to protect it. And this is something that Melbourne does very well. So they've got the Melbourne Food Bowl, and I think that's basically what a peri-urban strategy for Perth may move into. So I think it's timely. We do need to stop this urban expansion into the outer regions, and we do need to look at food security. So I think there's quite a big interest in it now.
For me, food security is a huge issue, and it seems like in Australia at the moment it's growing, it's certainly changing, but it has been way behind in lots of things, because we're just so confident that, you know, we produce 60% of the world's grain or something like that, but you can't live on grain alone. And Perth is the largest, most isolated city of its size in the world, and we have one road in and one road out, one railway in, one railroad out. If anything happens on that Nullarbor plain, either a biosecurity risk that's really substantial or whatever, we're in deep doo-doo here in Perth in less than a week. We don't produce sufficient of our own daily requirements: milk, eggs, meat, we don't produce enough for our current population to survive on. So, but we have a terrific southwest. We have the capacity. We have just been beaten out of the willingness to produce and look after our own. And for me, that's a really big driving force. But the thing that sustains me is the individual that I meet that goes, oh, I can do that. That's a good idea. Can I join you? You know, our group is growing all the time. The interest is growing. And every time I see a young person show up and say, yeah, I can do that, I go, good. I see my retirement on the horizon.
Ladies, Mary, Colleen, thanks so much for having a chat with me just off the camera. Well, you're on camera, I'm off camera, but it's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming in. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.